Red Cloud Financial Services is your preeminent source for mining industry opportunities. The team provides a unique, tailored marketing program dedicated to reaching the right people from its mining-focused global network, giving clients access to industry-leading events and conferences, retail and institutional marketing, plus an in-house growth-driven digital agency. Red Cloud Financial Services has access to some of the mining industry's most notable companies and CEOs.
Hello and welcome to this live core conversation brought to you by Red Cloud Financial Services. I'm Mark Bunting, the host of RCTV. Thank you very much, as always, for joining us on one of these live core conversation days, usually Thursdays. We're talking about something very interesting today, essentially a whole new market. An entrepreneur, along with his team, looking to bring commodity markets onto the blockchain through tokenization backed by physical gold. And a reminder that we are taking questions. If you have any, put them in the comment section, please, on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll get to as many as we can toward the end of the show. I'm going to bring in our guest now, Henry McPhie. He is the CEO of BioSig Technologies and the co-founder of Streamex. Thanks for joining us today, Henry.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Pleasure to be here.
All right, good to see you. Let's start with kind of a sort of a softball just off the top here, so we all understand what you're doing at Streamex along with your colleagues. Can you start by explaining the mission at Streamex?
Yeah, no, of course. I think the mission itself is very simple. We want to create the best and most efficient way to own, invest, and trade gold. And the way that we do that is through tokenization. And so the ability for us to create assets that are better and much more efficient and an easier way to own, invest, and trade gold. And so that's really what we're doing.
And just off the top here, Henry, it's worth pointing out that Frank Justra and Sean Rusin are strategic advisors in this project. And Streamex is in the midst of raising $1.1 billion. Can you give us some more detail on the progress there?
Yeah, no, 100%. So Sean and Frank, they've been individuals and mentors and friends and people who we've been working with for quite a while now, since we started the company around 2.5 years ago. They've been large investors, large supporters, and are great advisors to the company. We recently, just around 2 weeks ago, announced that we were raising up to 1.1 billion with a leading institutional group out of New York. Also, yesterday we just announced actually the pricing of another deal where we raised 15 million. US, all from high net worth individuals, large existing shareholders, and single family offices. And so now, as of yesterday, we are in a very good position. We don't really need to raise for a very long period of time now. Super low G&A costs as a company, and so we're very excited to really start getting everything that we're going to be doing moving very quickly here.
Right. So the focus is to tokenize gold, basically the tokenization of gold, and you're using your balance sheet, which you were just describing there, to do that. So how does that work? And what benefits does tokenized gold have versus other forms of gold investing?
I think there's a couple really important things to note with tokenization and the tokenization of a physical asset, and gold specifically. The reason that it makes so much sense and we think it's going to be such an innovative thing is because the way that when you own a share in a company, for example, this is the example I sort of give. When you own a share in a company, you own part of that company. If you own a token that represents ownership of physical gold, you actually own that physical gold. And so what tokenization allows us to do is essentially use blockchain technology to create a much more efficient system to actually trade this obviously very historical asset. We know that gold trades similar to the S&P 500 every day. And so by bringing that on chain and reducing, T+1 times, the ability to, hold physical stuff like that, by just making it simply the ability to trade the digital representation, it allows us to, one, trade worldwide, two, have access to 500 million plus new crypto investors that are around the world, and three, create a system that for the gold market is pretty revolutionary. And so you can trade anywhere, you can trade instantly. The transaction costs, because we're on Solana and the base network, are essentially zero. And it's essentially a much more efficient way to trade the asset itself.
Now, Henry, previously you've described a major shift somewhat away from traditional finance toward a more digital financial system. We know that BlackRock, for example, they think they can tokenize everything, or at least the industry can. And I believe they bought about nearly $500 million or more than $500 million worth of Ethereum the other day. And we know the Trump administration is very pro crypto, pro blockchain and stablecoins and so on, and tokenization. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is a very institutional shift towards this idea of tokenized finance and actually bringing the financial system onto the blockchain. And so, with BlackRock leading the charge, and especially the existing administration in the US, really advancing the regulatory challenges and regulatory hurdles that we've seen sort of in the past, we're moving towards a time where people are realizing that, hey, blockchain technology itself is amazing. Blockchain and crypto are two separate things, and so blockchain, the technology that the cryptocurrency industry is built on, actually provides the perfect medium of exchange for financial products. And so we're seeing BlackRock and other large institutions getting involved in this space and really trying to wrap their arms around it. And so BlackRock, they have something called their BIDL fund, which is a U.S. Treasuries fund. It's over, I think it's over $1 billion now in total assets in there, and it's growing very quickly. And then obviously stable coins and everything like that. And so when we look at this, we say a massive opportunity for growth. BlackRock thinks it's going to be a $16 trillion market by 2030. I've seen numbers up to $30 trillion talking about bringing the whole financial market onto the blockchain, actually. And this doesn't mean necessarily getting rid of the traditional way of doing things, but I think it means integrating blockchain into the traditional markets, because it provides a much more efficient mediums for exchange. It's a decentralized ledger that is immutable, and you can essentially transfer these assets anywhere very quickly.
Now, Henry, you are looking to solve problems like any good entrepreneur, and fill a void and create a niche. So what problems would you say that Streamex is looking to solve here?
No, it's a great question, and I think there's a couple things. One, if with our focus in gold specifically, one is opening up ease of access for people to invest, hold, and trade gold as an asset. Right now, obviously, there's ways to own gold. You can go, if you're more institutional, with a bullion bank. Of course, you can go to the pawn shop and buy some gold coins or stuff like that. But I think when you think about that, there's a lot of friction in that process. And so at Streamex, what we are creating is essentially the easiest way for anyone to own physical gold. That can be as easy as essentially opening up your phone, clicking a couple buttons, and then owning, $1 or up to $1 million, and maybe even more of physical. And that physical is simply represented by a token. Once you own that gold, you can trade that gold, you can hold that gold for life. There is zero vaulting fees, and so zero holding fees for actually having that gold. The fees for trading and anything else is exponentially lower than what is currently in the market. And so what we are creating, and what we will create and bring to market, essentially is a gold backed asset that is the best way to own gold in the world. And I think through tokenization, it offers that ability. And people they ask, they think it's, hey, if I can't see it, if I can't hold it, it doesn't exist. You can actually redeem your tokens for physical gold. It's You're not going to say, if you own a stock, you're not going to go and get the physical stock certificate to make sure that you know that you hold it. The same goes for a tokenized gold asset. And so by doing this, moving into the digital age, and getting a younger generation interested, and my generation interested in investing in this asset, it's super powerful. And we are going to create the best way to do that.
Now, you threw some numbers out earlier about the potential size of this market, anywhere from 16 to 30 trillion, 32 trillion, I believe you said. Let's say the numbers in between that somewhere.
Uh-huh.
Realistically, in say 5-10 years time, what percentage of the total addressable market do you think Streamex could try to gain?
So I think it's a very interesting question. And so when you look at the gold market right now, it's just over a $22 trillion market, and that's all the gold that has ever been mined in the world. Within that market, there's around $8.7 trillion worth of gold that is, financial physical gold. That's the gold that is tradable, that is held with central banks, and transitions throughout the world in trade. When you look at the tokenized gold market, there's around $1.7 billion worth of gold tokenized on chain right now. And so for us, because we're going to be using our balance sheet to essentially purchase gold, tokenize that gold, and cycle that capital, we think that we can, one, easily have the largest gold token in the market in very short order. And I think when you look at it from a long-term perspective, I don't see a reason why tokenized gold and the actual digital representation of it becomes the primary means of exchange for the asset. And so not looking at the 22 trillion number, looking at the 8.7 trillion number, which is the financial portion, I think in the next 5 to 10 years, the tokenized gold that Streamex is bringing to market is going to make up a large percentage of that.
All right. So when does the Streamex plan to release its first tokenized gold asset? Can you take us through that timeline?
100%. So obviously, we just completed a couple funding rounds. We are in a position right now where we don't need any more capital. Like I said, our G&A costs are super low. We have a very good team behind us. We're going to be scaling that team and growing and bringing this asset to market, ideally by the end of the year. We have all the infrastructure in place. The technology platform has been developed and has been tested over the last 2.5 years. And we are going to be bringing our first asset by using our balance sheet capital to purchase this gold, tokenize it, bring it to the market, and then from there bring this asset out, and working on a couple, obviously, partnerships in the background on the distribution side. And so by the end of this year, we hope to have our first tokenized gold asset that anyone can come in and trade and buy and hold and do whatever they like with it.
Now, Henry, in looking at the Streamex website, I noticed there are a number of educational blogs. So some young people, your generation, as you say, inherently would understand what you're doing. Others may not. So how important is it to educate the market, young and old, as to what Streamex is doing?
I think it's very important. And I think there's sort of two sides of the coin when you look at that. One, there's the younger generation who sort of, understands crypto. They get what blockchain is. They've been trading it, doing meme coins and stuff like that. But they might not know gold and the commodities market. And then on the other hand, there's the commodity side where people are very knowledgeable about gold, very knowledgeable about mining, and they might not know everything about crypto. And so for myself, for example, I'm a mining engineer, but I've also been working in the crypto and technology space for quite a while now. And so it's a very unique position that I'm in to be able to educate people on sort of both sides. And so Streamex as a company, I think it's important for us to, one, educate the side of the mining investor and people who might be critics and skeptics to crypto, and they might think of crypto as Bitcoin and it's not real. But the ability to educate them on and saying, hey, blockchain and crypto are two separate things. The ability to use blockchain to create a more efficient asset with the asset that you love as an investor, which is gold. And then the other side with the crypto investors who might be more risk averse, they might be looking to have that 1000x increase, but then showing them that, hey, gold is actually the safest store of value in the world. It's had a massive run, obviously, recently. We think it's going to continue to move on that run. And so by being able to bring these two people together into this sort of new age of finance, education is the one of the most important things. And I'm going to be the loudest mouthpiece, hopefully, to be able to get people educated on both sides.
All right, very good. We'll look forward to that. Now, let's get some better understanding of BioSig Technologies, of which you're the CEO, which merged with Streamex. BioSig is a public company. So can you discuss how, number one, I mean, BioSig was up 10x at one point, and now it's consolidating those gains. But can you explain the structure?
Of course. So BioSig Technologies, they were a biotech company listed, NASDAQ listed. When we were looking at going public for Streamex, looked at a couple different options, nailed it down to sort of around three, had conversations with all of them. BioSig made the most sense for us with Streamex to merge into. And so we ended up completing that merger. I guess it was almost 3.5 months ago now. I came in as CEO of the combined company from the Streamex side. So Streamex now owns 75% of BioSig. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of the legacy company. And the BioSig operations, they're still continuing. They're moving on in a couple of clinical trials and stuff like that. But Streamex really is the main focus now moving forward. It gave us a way to become listed. It gave us a way to have a great existing shareholder base, and it was a very very not simple, but hassle-free process to be able to get here, working with the existing BioSig team. And so that was the sort of the short of it.
Lastly, here from me, Henry, before we get to some viewer questions, you've explained your mission and your vision to a degree, but can you look out, say, 5 years from now, 10 years? What will Streamex look like? What's the ultimate goal?
No, it's a great question. I think there's a couple facets to that when we look at it. One, obviously, right now our main focus is in gold and bringing the gold market and gold industry onto the blockchain. And so that will look like creating the largest gold token, largest tradable gold token in the world, and bringing that asset worldwide with a very large outstanding issuance and working with partners to be able to do that. The next part of that, and where it gets sort of interesting, is tokenization itself. You can tokenize really anything. And so when you look at the mining industry and you look at the commodity space, especially, the amount of assets out there is exponential, from financial assets to physical assets. And so when we look at it, the platform that we've created with Streamex essentially allows us to tokenize anything. There's a reason we're focusing on gold first, but as we grow as a company and really situate ourselves in the market, you start to look at things like royalties and streams, offtakes, potential gold plus yield products, potentially the tokenization of other commodity assets. And so that's where, as we grow as a company and as we move down the line and really get ourselves situated, we're going to bring the total commodities market on chain, not just gold. And so the opportunity for growth, I think, is massive. The commodities industry, if you take really everything into consideration, is around $142 trillion. And so our path for growth is big. The ability for us to do that is already developed. We just want to make sure that we do one thing the best first and then expand into these other sorts of facets of the industry.
All right, that answer leads nicely into my first question here from a viewer, Humberto Santos. Can Streamex tokenize gold from a preliminary economic assessment, or NI 43-101?
So it's a good question. We've looked at it. It's not necessarily our main focus right now. We would rather focus on the physical and hard asset. I think when you look at NI 43-101, resources or reserves, there's obviously it takes a lot to bring gold out of the ground. And so for us, from a simplicity standpoint and a market simplicity standpoint, our main focus is on the physical itself. Not saying we couldn't do it, but our main focus is on the physical already refined.
Okay, this question is from Kulwant Sander. What is the difference between tokenization of gold and exchange traded funds?
That's a really good question, actually. And so this is something that we've actually talked with a lot of different people about. And so when you look at an ETF is made up of physical and then quote unquote paper, whether it's futures, derivatives, contracts, everything like that. With an ETF, you are also paying a fee. And so that fee is anywhere between 20 and 40 basis points a year on owning your asset. When you look at a piece of digital gold, so tokenized gold, one, there is no fee. Two, it is all backed by physical allocated gold itself. And so when you think about this, and something that we like to talk about is if you think about it from sort of a US centric, then non-US or North American centric view, is one, people outside of the US or outside of Canada, it's hard for them to actually invest in US ETFs. And so the digital option already is a more attractive option. And when you compile that with the lack of fees on a digital asset, so a tokenized gold asset, you actually get a much more efficient and much better asset to hold and own. So instead of paying essentially gold price minus 30 basis points per year for holding an ETF, you essentially just pay gold price and you get that exposure without having to pay any fees for it. You can transfer it worldwide, and it's I think a much more efficient way to actually hold the gold you own.
All right, that's a very good answer, very thorough. Adrian Cantwell, will digitization of assets such as gold preclude quote unquote covered shorting activity where one first needs to borrow the asset?
So I'll say one thing on that. We will not be borrowing any money to purchase this gold. We'll only be using our own money to do it. When we buy gold, we tokenize that. It is a one-to-one backing on the asset itself. You get exposure directly to gold price. Each token will be worth 1 ounce of gold, so around $3,400 today, I believe. And so when you buy that asset, you can buy fractions of that asset. You can buy the full ounce. You can buy 1.5 ounces. And so I think of it simply as essentially you buy the physical asset, you hold that in a digital form, and you can trade that all around the world.
Question from Jeffrey Mosseri. How does one buy gold through Streamex today?
So today, the platform itself, like I said, we're going to be launching our first asset by the end of the year. And so within that time, we're already taking early signups and early access requests for people who might want to own the first physical gold that we tokenize. And so by the end of the year, you'll be able to log in to the Streamex platform. You'll be able to set up your account, similar to setting up an investing account. Very simple, very easy, signing with your email and password. And then from there, you'll be able to essentially click a couple buttons, connect a wallet if you're a crypto native, deposit US dollars or Canadian dollars if you're a non-crypto native, and click a button and purchase the asset. Then you will have that asset in digital form. It's a very seamless and easy process. If you have a brokerage account, it's very similar. And so that'll be coming very shortly here.
All right, very good. Richard Kiley asks, how will BioSig make money on the tokenization?
So there's a couple different ways that we look at it. When you look at a traditional tokenization model, essentially there's certain fees and spreads that you get within it. And so for us, there's a small fee on the tokenization of the asset itself. And so from there, then there's also a small fee potentially on the secondary trading of the asset. This is something that is less important. And so the most important thing for us is having a large outstanding issuance, have these assets trading worldwide and very frequently. And then from there, we take fees across most of the transactions and then also on the actual tokenization of the asset itself. As we expand into other sorts of potentially structured products and other industries as well, there will be also spreads on sales. And so when we look at it from a modeling standpoint, as we grow in issuance, our revenues grow very quickly. And by us being able to control the market, our revenues will also continue to grow. And so our goal is to obviously have the largest outstanding issuance, and then from there, have significant revenues off of that large outstanding issuance of tokens.
All right, Henry, one last question from a viewer here, another one from Jeffrey Masseri. Will you be changing the name of BioSig to Streamex eventually?
We will. We will. It will be Streamex in short order as we're going through this whole process. Obviously, it's important that we keep the BioSig name, and so it'll be changing to Streamex in a short period here, and I'm sure you guys will all see it when that happens.
All right, this has all been very interesting and informative and educational. Is there anything we didn't touch on, Henry, that you want to get across?
No, honestly, I think this was a great conversation, Mark, and I think something that I'd like to leave people with is tokenization itself. It can be thought of as something new, something that is it's a young industry. But with that, when you think about it from a perspective of an investor, and you see where it's going, and you see all of the interest that is flowing into the space, it's for a reason. The tokenization of gold on top of that, essentially, it is the most efficient, and I've been saying this a lot, but it's the most efficient way to own physical gold bullion. The questions about, if I don't have it in my hand, do I really own it? I think is counteracted by, it is backed by physical. You know exactly what gold bar it is. You can trade it wherever you want, and you can redeem it at any point. And so the most important thing for us is obviously safety and security of these assets. And so when you buy gold from Streamex, you know exactly what you're getting, stored with a tier one vault or stored in Switzerland or North America. And so as we grow as a company and as we start bringing these assets to market, I think look out for what we're going to be doing. If you are a gold investor, if you are a crypto or blockchain investor, think about diversifying your portfolio into tokenized assets and come along for the ride with us as we really transform the gold ecosystem, and I think create a really a new way to do things in the mining and commodity space.
Well, as I said, it's all very interesting, and you seem to be very well positioned. Thanks again for shedding some light on Streamex today, Henry.
Thank you very much, Mark. It was a pleasure.
All right, great stuff. Henry McPhie, he is the CEO of BioSig Technologies and co-founder of Streamex. Thanks for your questions today. This will be up in the form of a replay on YouTube in no time. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time on a Red Cloud Live Core Conversation. Take care for now.